Hello, everyone, and welcome to this evening's project showcase at India Foundation for the Arts. As many of you know, India Foundation for the Arts is an independent national philanthropy that supports and implements projects across research, practice, and education. In the last 29 years, IFA has implemented over 860 projects, leading to a variety of outcomes, including workshops, performances, films, publications, etc. And the Project Showcase is a series of presentations that IFA organizes to share the work of the project coordinators and the learnings and excitement of the projects that have unfolded over the last many years. Today, we have a very special presentation from our Archives and Museums program. And Ritika Mishra, our program officer, Archives and Museums, will share a little bit more about the particular project as well as introduce our speakers for the evening. But before that, a few house rules. If you are here on Zoom, please feel free to use the chat box to share your comments, observations about the project. But if you'd like to ask a question to the panelists, please use the Q&A box so we can address them to the panelists. If you're watching on Facebook, do leave any questions or comments in the Facebook chat box, and our colleagues there will bring it to Zoom here. So without further ado, I invite Ritika Mishra, Program Officer, Archives and Museums, to introduce the evening. Over to you, Ritika.
Thank you, Menaka, and hello everyone, good evening. I'm Ritika and I oversee the Archives and Museums program. Today we are here to talk about a very special project that was implemented under the program and at the heights of pandemic. The Archives and Museums program envisions to activate collections in archives and museums across the country of various kinds. It might be a national museum, it might be a physical archive, it might be a digital platform as well. The entire goal of the program is to invite scholars, researchers, curators, educators, any kind of creative practitioners to intervene and create new disciplinary knowledge and discourses by using the collections of these institutions. One of such project today is in collaboration with IFA and PERI 2020, and today we have Nobina from the project, who was the project coordinator. And Nobina today is going to talk about a very interesting project where she engaged with the children and the community of East Kolkata Wetlands, which is situated in the eastern fringes of Kolkata in West Bengal, and how she used arts and various modes of arts to enhance capacity building of children and enabling them to become voices, to spread awareness about their own community and create a living archive of sorts about the community knowledge, generate awareness about what wastelands mean and wetlands mean and how important it is for the environment for any. So I will now request Nobina to introduce herself and to start presentation.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nobina, and I'm a practicing artist curator and the founder director of Disappearing Dialogues. It's a pleasure that today I am presenting the project that we did in times of COVID, and there were so many challenges, but the outcome of the project has still been it has acted as a springboard for us for all the kind of current interventions we're doing in the East Kolkata wetlands. So I would like to take you through the journey as well as help you connect to our other partners of the team who've been crucial in taking this project forward. So with me, there is Aahiree Banerjee and there's Nayna, who both work as part of the team. Can we have the presentation so we'll be able to go through it? So Aahiree Banerjee is actually the project coordinator, and she's a performing artist also, and she helps in the project, the way it is going to be ideated, the way it is leading in both in the city and in the wetlands. And Nayna has been with us for a long time, first as one of the students of the schools, and then she passed out, and now she's been working with us for a long time, and she's the eco guide. So today, what I'm going to talk about is Jol-a-bhumir, Golpo, Kotha, stories of wetland. And the first thing that we're going to know is, what are these wetlands? What kind of spaces are these? So, East Kolkata wetlands, many a times that we've been asking people that, have you heard about the name? And it's surprising that people are still not aware of a wetland at a periphery of a city, which is one of the largest Swedish wetlands, and something very rare to find. And it's not a small body of water body. It's 12,500 hectares of wetland at the periphery. And the most important part is, how does it sustain the city? The city is dependent on this wetlands, and the wetlands and the city, Kolkata, actually share a very symbiotic relationship with each other. Next. What I would like to state is Kolkata, as we all know, has a beautiful, the way it is placed is very interesting. One side you have the Hooghly, which connects to the Ganges, and then you have the Bay of Bengal, and every one of us have heard about Sundarbans. So its position is very crucial and very important. But the one thing that people do not know is, it is a little tilted. It is tilted towards the Bay of Bengal. So the outfall channel has to always go from the East Kolkata wetlands to reach to the Bay of Bengal. Now, what happens in this East Kolkata wetland area is these outfall channels as they flow, they get purified in a very organic way. And somewhere this wastewater is treated, because Calcutta does not have a waste management plant, and it cannot afford one too. So this whole unique ecosystem of East Kolkata wetland plays like a natural purification organic sewage plant for the city. Next. Now, at times we've realized that people do not understand what wetlands are. When we ask them, that they say there must be water bodies, there must be ponds, there must be lakes, but somehow they do not know how crucial their existence is in their everyday life, and what role it plays in our whole ecology, or within the lives that we lead, the everyday services that we get. So it's been important in our journey that we highlight the importance of wetland. And interestingly, East Kolkata wetland has got this Ramsar Convention. It's come under Ramsar Convention. It's one of a wetland of international importance. And the importance is because of these threefold services that it gives. One is, of course, food production. All of us know Bengalis love fishes, and a lot of fresh fishes come to our market every day because of these wetlands. And the community rears these fishes. They rear it in a very unique way. They rear it by using the wastewater as a nutrient, not as a pollutant. So this whole perception of looking into wastewater not as something that is to be wasted, rather than something that has to be utilized for everyday practices, for something that is that has got a regenerative quality. So, we've been hearing about circular economy, examples of this, and here we have in life something just lying unnoticed. And so on one side, we have this food production. The other side, we have a lot of biodiversity. A lot of rare migratory birds come here. You have a lot of edible plants, medicinal plants, aromatic plants. All these are a part of this whole ecology. And you have also the other thing that happens here is it's a huge carbon sink. We do not look into these areas as ecological wells. And with time, what is happening is the degradation all over the world of these wetlands is because of this ignorance, or because of not being aware of what these ecosystems are. Next. So this East Kolkata wetlands, as I was saying, it is an organic sewage treatment plant in a way, and it has got huge ecological impacts. The ecological services that it gives. One is it is supportive to a lot of habitats. The kind of biodiversity it has, it's immense. So if we do not have this kind of habitats, we will lose a lot of like the ecological balance of our surroundings, or our cities will be lost. So Calcutta, if it really loses this East Kolkata wetlands, it will be a nightmare in a way, because both it will drown in its own waste, because there will be no treatment of its waste. And second is, it in any climate crisis, in next Isla or cyclone, these are the names of the cyclones we've earlier had, it's going to drown. So one important aspect of this is how does it support? It supports by this kind of rich biodiversity tools. Second is it regulates the ecosystem. One is the kind of balance, the greenhouse gas emissions, the carbon sink. All these are very important aspects in maintaining the ecological balance. Next is the helps in provisioning. So we also know that how important it is, the kind of food that we get, the edible plants that I was talking about, and also the cultural practices which exist around these water bodies. We've known all through our civilization that water bodies have played a very crucial role in like the kind of practices that have developed around these, the communities who have lived. But it is sad that in the current moment, we do not even acknowledge these communities. We do not know anything about these. We do not know about the space. We do not know about this whole community who is sustaining the balance. Next. And each and every day, these wetlands are becoming prey to the ever expanding city. So it's known as, Kolkata is usually known as a city which has no other place to expand than the East Kolkata wetlands. So it's quite known as a real estate in waiting. So every day there's one or the other wetland that is being encroached and filled, and we have development plans where PILs being taken up. But what is the outcome of it? Where are we leading ourselves to? Next. And the kind of threats that East Kolkata wetlands is facing, the community youth are the ones who are constantly, we can see the anxiety that's growing within them. And this anxiety, has come up through our project in multiple ways, through their artworks, through their performances, through their storytelling. And they've been really worried because they can see it day in, day out, the changes that are happening around them. In this context, what does Disappearing Dialogues do? So Disappearing Dialogues is a project that has been working with the community youth for past 7 to 8 years. And the main idea is not just to think about how do we create something, but how do we really amplify the knowledge systems or the assets that this community has? Because our approach is an approach which is collaborative, where we want these youth to really acknowledge the kind of environment that the system that they live in, understand how important the practices that their parents do, how does that really help the city, or how does the city sustain itself through these practices. We try to archive the kind of biodiversities there, amplify their voices, address these critical challenges that they are facing. Because in this whole scenario where we know that the city and the wetlands have a symbiotic relationship, we see vast inequalities. A community which is living in a space which is surrounded with water does not have access to drinking water. They have to buy water every day. And on the other side, you see, they are the ones who are managing the waste of the whole city, but they do not have the municipal corporation to come up to pick up their local waste. You have a community who gives you fresh food every day, getting into these fish ponds at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then you do not even know their name. So what kind of what are their rights? The basic rights they're being we are not even being able to give them these basic rights. So this is something which is always worried us, and we've really thought that what could be the way around from it? How could we really address these kind of challenges, and also look into that this space does not get lost day by day as it is. Next. And keeping all these things in mind, we've been designing interdisciplinary projects. Some of them, of course, address the ecological challenges that we think. Some of them seek alternative solutions, because we know we cannot just address challenges. We also have to find solutions. So some of them are, and a big important part of it is also building ambassadors of change, which is these youth. The wetland ambassadors are our main strength, and they are helping us lead the project. By amplifying the voices through different projects, we are trying to see how these children, who can be the leaders of the future, can build connections and build, bridge these kind of gap between the city and the periphery, or between generations, and uphold these kind of ecological, the wealth that the space has, and disseminate it across. So in this context was where we actually came up with the Pari and IFA archive, which was built. And this IFA Pari program, which brought us a lot of resources, a lot of opportunities to look into all these contexts that I just spoke about, and how we could build on it. And the interesting part was that at the moment we were thinking of a lot of things, we got the opportunity to be on this project and open up to more dialogues, which we were wondering how we could go about. Next. The main idea was not to build static like archives as we've usually seen, but to look into the whole space in a new way, how we could think it as a living archive, as a living museum. How could these stories be disseminated by or written or spoken or collected by the children? How in this process the children could really build some kind of skills which would actually help them to connect to their future. So a lot of our outcomes, some of them were tangible, of course, a lot of them were intangible also. Next. And why storytelling? The storytelling idea was because we realized that if these stories are told by the children, and they actually can relate to the experiences that they have on their daily basis, we will come out with a kind of a very different narration of the space. Because before that, it was more of us documenting, recording things that we were actually intervening, the way we were looking into the space. But this was the first time that we could really bring in the children in the forefront, make them leaders to research, to look into their surroundings, and be journalists, and see how best they can disseminate it in their own ways to the public. Next. So the project was, we took a very interesting way through the 1 year, as well as the extension period that we got, is we started with virtual platforms, because as you know, in COVID, how difficult it was to do anything. And in this difficult times, virtual platforms were something very important, and they somehow helped us to connect to these children who were locked in these spaces and really did not know what and how to go about things. So in a way, we first made these WhatsApp groups in a way, and through the WhatsApp groups we connected them. And then we had a lot of exchange programs where we brought them together, we brought the community together, we brought the teachers together, and we had a dialogue with them. As we had the dialogue and we asked them to look into the stories around them, they started finding out a lot of things which they hadn't noticed earlier. And gradually, with these themes, we brought in a lot of experts into the platform, and these experts brought in their expertise. And we started saying that, what is a story? What is a story? How do you find a story? How do you write a story? What could be an interesting way of looking into journalism? What is the difference between fiction and fact? And how does one really flow through this, how does one actually examine their surroundings and come up with a kind of a story which would be interesting and engaging, as well as be able to convey the kind of facts that they would like to state. In this whole process, an important role was played by the team of Pari also, where once we got the stories and we discussed it with them. They guided us on what kind of questions that what a journalist needs to ask, because at times we were not very aware that we have to look into the stories from the aspects that how many people are being engaged, what is the intergenerational connections in these stories. So these questions were very important for us, which were passed on to the children. And slowly, there was a whole bundle of stories that came in different formats. Some were podcasts, some were videos, some were illustrated stories, comics. And in the end, two of the stories also got selected, and they're also live in Pari's platform. Next. I would like to invite Nayna. Nayna Naskar was a part of the team, and to really share the kind of experience we had during COVID and during these online sessions. Nayna, over to you.
হাই এভরিওয়ান, আমি নয়না। তো এই যে টাইমটা ছিল সেটা হচ্ছে কোভিডের একদম সময়টা, লকডাউনের টাইম। তো তখন বাচ্চাদেরকে বলা হয়েছিল একটা অনলাইন গ্রুপ করার কথা। তো সেখানে যেহেতু সবার কাছে ফোন ছিল না, একটা ক্রাইসিস তখন, তো সেজন্য সবাইকে মানে আমরা একটা পার্ট করে নিয়েছিলাম যে পাড়ায় একটা পাড়ার মধ্যে কতজন স্টুডেন্ট আছে, তো সেই হিসাবে একটা পাড়াতে একটা ফোনে একজন করে করা হবে। তো আচ্ছা, আইহিরি দি আমার কথাগুলো একটু ট্রান্সলেট করে দেবে তো? সো আইহিরি দি।
Yes. So she welcomes every one of you. She's Nayna. I am Aahiree. Hello, everyone. So she speaks of the time when the project was done. That was during lockdown, COVID. So during that time, a group was formed where everyone could come together for the work and activities to be done. So in each neighborhood, students were identified and then they were brought together, as everyone did not have a phone. So some of the students were brought together and then they connected, then the sessions happened.
হ্যাঁ, তো তারপর তারা নিজেরা সেখানে ওই গ্রুপে আসতো এবং তাদের নিজেদের পরিস্থিতির কথা, মানে বর্তমান পরিস্থিতির কথা শেয়ার করতো। আমরা তাদেরকে বলতাম যে তারা কি কি দেখছে, মানে তাদের আশপাশের পরিস্থিতিটাকে ড্রয়িং এর মাধ্যমে, গল্পের মাধ্যমে, কবিতার মাধ্যমে যাতে তুলে ধরে।
So everyone was asked to reflect on their surroundings, on what change they're seeing around them. Obviously, COVID was a different era for everyone. And the children were asked to observe very keenly what they see around them and then document them through different artistic mediums. It could be a video, it could be audio, it could be drawings, paintings, or writing poems, anything.
তো এখানে বামুনঘাট অ্যান্ড খেয়াদা স্কুলের টিচাররাও ইনভলভ ছিল, মানে তারাও এখানে জয়েন করতো এবং স্টুডেন্টদেরকে এঙ্গেজ করতো। তো তারাও বিভিন্ন রকম ভাবে বাচ্চাদেরকে বলতো, মানে যেহেতু তারা পুরো ঘরে বন্দি, তো সেই জিনিসটাকে তারা মানে সারা দিনের মধ্যে একটা ক্লান্তির মধ্যেও এই 1 ঘন্টা টাইমটা খুব মানে এনজয় করা হতো, যে তাদের প্রতিদিনের মানে জিনিসটা, মানে সারা দিন কিভাবে কাটছে এই 1 ঘন্টা টাইমের মধ্যে আমরা সবাই মিলে শেয়ার করতাম এই অনলাইন সেশনের মধ্যে।
So this was a moment of relief for everyone. Along with the students, the teachers of various schools also joined in. Primarily the two schools we work with, Bamunghata High School and Khiadaho High School, situated in the East Kolkata wetlands. So teachers and other mentors also joined with the students. And Nayna is saying that it was that hour, 1 hour out of the day, it was a moment of relief for them, that they could share everything and they could at least see some faces from of the classes. And as always, the DD team also joined. So yeah.
Next.
Yes, Nana. Next slide.
The next.
তো এখানে তারা মানে তারা যে কি কি দেখছে, কি অবজার্ভ করছে, সেই জিনিসগুলো আমরা বিভিন্ন জায়গার জিনিসটা বিভিন্ন জিনিসের মাধ্যমে দেখতে পেতাম। মানে মাসের শেষে আমরা দেখতাম যে কেউ কেউ শেয়ার করছে যে তার বাড়ির থেকে হয়তো তার বাবা মা খুব ভালো বাগান চাষ করতে পারে, বা কেউ কারোর মা হয়তো খুব ভালো রান্না করতে পারে, কেউ হয়তো খুব ভালো কবিতা লিখতে পারে, বা কেউ হয়তো খুব ভালো গান লিখতে পারে। মানে এরকম নানান জায়গা থেকে আমরা নানান রকম জিনিস পেয়েছিলাম, নানান রকম জিনিস তুলে ধরেছিল তারা।
So by the end of the month, various things came up, many new skills got uncovered, and we also got to know a lot about the students. For example, uh, one student came up and said that I did not know that my mother cooks so well. So obviously they started documenting each and every process, and then everything came up more clearly. So while someone spoke about the agriculture, the farming, the type of farming that happens in their family, someone said that my father sings very well, someone writes poems very well. So a lot of things came up at the end of the month. Yeah.
Next.
কতগুলো সেশন হতো সেটা তুই যদি বলিস, যে কিরকম কত ঘন ঘন তোরা দেখা করতিস?
আচ্ছা, আমরা মানে সব চেষ্টা করতাম সপ্তাহে একটা করে সেশন করার। তো যদিও সেটা না হতো, মাসের মধ্যে দুটো না হলেও 3টে সেশন আমরা করতাম।
So every week they tried to come into the session, was weekly session planned, but however if that did not work out, then 3 to 4 sessions happened in every month. Yes, Nayna.
And it was interesting to see that sometimes when they would come up with stories, they would come up with stories which they themselves didn't know, because the main idea was during this process that how do they connect to their own surroundings, as well as ask questions to their parents, grandparents, investigate in their lives, see what more they can. And at times they would come up with challenges also, and maybe at night they would call and tell me, oh, I'm finding it very difficult to really get this story, or they didn't know how to document it, because certain things which they've been seeing, then they don't think that it is important to document or even to talk about. But নয়না বলতে পারবে কি এই যেমনি পাখি পাখালি নিয়ে তোমরা কাজ করেছিলে, তো আগে কি রকম মনে হতো আর এই গল্পগুলো লেখার পরে কি রকম মনে হতো?
হ্যাঁ, তো আমরা আগে মানে পাখি তো আমরা এমনি নর্মাল সচরাচর দেখতেই পাই, তো আমরা তখন নর্মাল ভাবেই দেখতাম যে একটা পাখি উড়ে যাচ্ছে। কিন্তু এই সেশনগুলো হওয়ার পরে আমরা পাখির সম্পর্কে আরো বিস্তারিত মানে আরো বিশেষ ভালো করে জানতে পেরেছি। তো পাখিরা কখন কোন টাইমে কোন পাখিগুলো এখানে আসে, বা কোন পাখিগুলো আমাদের এখানে সারা বছর থাকে, এই সকল মানে এরকম নানান রকম জিনিস আমরা জানতে পেরেছি।
Yeah, so she's saying that there are obviously, as we know, a lot of birds in EKW and a lot of variety also. But before the project, she was saying that before the project, we just saw birds. Some different looking birds are flying away. Some have different calls. But after this, through the project, she started looking into birds in a more detailed form, identified their calls, their colors, their sizes, and what their habitats are, what they feed on. So yeah, and Nayna knows a lot about birds and the biodiversity that is available in the EKW.
And at the moment, she's now our eco guide also, who takes us
Yes.
people around. The other thing very interesting here was we, as Aahiree earlier mentioned, we came to know about the hidden talents that they had. Like this is a poster that Nayna herself has drawn. The other one is from drawing made by her own sister. And she always wanted to become an artist. But then it was interesting that in this process, we could really address the kind of dreams and aspirations also these children have. So sometimes these stories brought in a lot more other aspects, foregrounded them, and we could have dialogue and we could see how they could be addressed in our future programs. Next. So this is a poetry written by one of the girls, yeah, Preeti Hathi. Maybe Aahiree can give a gist of what the poetry means.
I'll just read should I read the Bengali bit too?
Maybe 2 lines and explain.
Yeah. So the poem's name is Khaler Porinoti, which means Khal is wastewater canals, and the this conditions of wastewater canal basically. আমাদের গ্রামের পাশ থেকে বয়ে গেছে খাল, তাতে রয়েছে কালো কালো জল, খালের জলের দ্বারা হচ্ছে চাষ, তাই ফসল খেয়ে হচ্ছে সর্বনাশ। প্লাস্টিক ফেলা হচ্ছে আজ খালের জলে, পদার্থটা অভঙ্গুর, মানুষ সেটাই ভুলে গেছে। কালো জল দেখে মনে হয় ভবিষ্যৎটাই অন্ধকার, আবর্জনা ফেলা নিষেধ নেই, কেমন বিচার। খালের জল নদী থেকে সাগরে গিয়ে মিশছে, কিভাবে বাঁচবে আজ মানুষ সেটাই ভাবছে। খালের জল হয়ে উঠছে বিষাক্ত, কিভাবে হবে জীবনের শনাক্ত। So basically, what she wants to say is that wastewater canals are always seen as a pollutant and a water that is to be only more polluted. But however, the wastewater canal is the lifeline of EKW, and it plays a very vital role. However, in the poem, what is getting reflected is that everyone comes and throws their waste into the wastewater canals, and that is a condition that it is kind of a personification of the khal, that is the wastewater canal, where the khal is sad, and Preeti is also saying, the poet Preeti is also saying that what days are coming into our future, that what are we going to see, where the lifeline which revitalizes, which takes the waste in, how we are throwing more waste, more plastic, more inorganic materials into the waste, and even polluting it more, and not looking into the canals as a nutrient. Rather, we're looking at it as a pollutant and not caring for it.
So this was the first time that Preeti had ever shared her poetry with anyone, because she said that she had been scribbling lines in her copy, but then in this process, she came up with a whole series of poetry, which she's been also reciting them in many of our events, in our Jol-a-bhumir or in other events. So it's nice to see how she found her talent or her interest in poetry, and how expressive and how important she's been how she's been using poetry as a tool to express her feelings about these ecological issues. Next. This is a work by Priya Burman, who stays in Uchchepoda, and Uchchepoda is one of the regions of East Kolkata wetlands, which has been drastically encroached. And you hardly have any more water bodies really left. It looks like a city, it no more looks like a wetland. So in this area, staying there, when we asked her the story, she said, this is one story that is very dear to my heart, and I definitely want to state this. And for this, we thought that because she was good in drawing, and she's always been drawing very miniaturistic forms, so we thought that maybe she could come up with a comic strip. So Shodit Gupta from Asmi Books, we invited him as an expert, and he came and he in a way guided them through that, how do you really build on these comic strips, what is the way you could do it. So it was interesting that how she learned both the skill of how she can make stories through comics in a comic format and narrate them, and also actually tell stories of her own experiences. Next. This is something Nayna can speak about, is the recipes that Wetland holds. Her mother is herself a very good cook, and we have a lot of recipes that are from Wetlands, which we are trying to make as a recipe book with time. So
yes, Nayna.
তো এখানে আমরা ওই যে বললাম তার মানে আমরা যে গল্পগুলো মানে তারা যে কি কি গল্প তুলে ধরছে, তার মধ্যে এটাও একটা, যে অনেকের মা খুব ভালো রান্না করছে। তো সেটাই মানে আমরা দেখেছিলাম যে মানে একজন ছিল যিনি রূপসা মণ্ডল, তো তার মাও খুব ভালো রান্না করে।
So it was interesting. Her mother, her mother actually knows a lot of traditional recipes, as well as what are the edible plants in the wetlands, what does one, how nutritive it is, what are medicinal plants. So it was nice to have this traditional knowledge also being incorporated in the stories that she was writing. And this was about her mother, because in East Kolkata wetland, there's another issue that we look into, is how the women and the girls really do not have a separate identity, where you have fishermen and like men being having a kind of a identity of their own, but women somehow are neglected or not. So we are trying to see how we can build a kind of an identity around these women. We also have a kind of a community store, which is known as Didi Dokan. And these are the recipes which are also being incorporated within a recipe book. Next, we'll just share 2 videos. Aahiree might be able to. These are the 2 storybooks that came into being with the collaboration of 2 very important artists from Shantiniketan. One is Shweta Raina and the other is Mehzubin Imam. They both illustrated beautifully the stories that these children wrote. So maybe Aahiree can play that and talk about it. So one of the stories was about a grandmother.
Aahiree is not playing here. You might have to stop this sharing.
It's not
and
playing here?
Yeah, it's not playing here. You'll have to share it from
Okay.
the other PPT, I think.
Yeah, sure.
So this was a story written about a grandmother by Swastika, whose grandmother was used to weave with palm leaves. And it was interesting while doing the story, as that was, I think, the help that we got from the Pari team, is investigating into why and what, asking the kind of right questions, and to know that.
Sorry, should I continue?
It's still not playing.
So you have to stop sharing. You have to stop sharing
Okay,
from
I'll
this
try it
screen
once again. Yeah,
and reshare from the other one.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or we can play the video from our end.
I think that'll be better, because I think it's better you play the video.
Sure.
So these are 2 storybooks which are now available within the DD store, and anyone can actually collect them. So this is Swastika's story about her grandmother. And you can see the illustrations that how her grandmother really processes the plum leaves, how she weaves this chatai. And there are also brooms and other things that are being made through it. And also we know that the kind of khejur or the palm leaf jaggery that we get, which is very important in our Bengali sweets. So this was the story which was made into a story, one of the books. The other story which we have is about a father. And Rupsha Mondal has written the story, and it's been illustrated. And it talks about the one a day in my father's life, and it talks about how her father is a fisherman and how he actually spends his whole day. This is in Bengali, so we have the stories both in Bengali and in English. And here she talks about the village that she stays in, and what does her father. He wakes up early in the morning to start going to the pond and catching fish, and then he goes to the market, and whatever fish is left back he brings home. Her mother cooks, and he also works in the garden, and he drives away the birds. At night he's the night guard also to keep these fish ponds alive. So these are very short stories, but they're very integral to the life of the wetlands. So these stories books were made as an outreach of the program, and we felt that it would be nice to have 2 storybooks as an afterlife of the program to keep continuing. Can we go back to the presentation? And so these story books, the collaboration also helped us in one way to start thinking that how these co-creations can be formulated, where we as artists or as practitioners have a lot of skills, and how we can actually look into this exchange of skills and exchange of knowledge systems. The 2 stories which we saw are also on Pari's platform, and you can always log in and read the stories and see the kind of photo documentation has been done by the children themselves. So these two stories which you saw in the books are here. Next. And the best thing was the intangible outcomes that came out of it. So we had never imagined that a project that we did in the COVID, in those difficult times, and the way the children engaged and did the video and the film, and that the kind of confidence, the kind of expertise that they gain in it was something which really helped us to take our program further. Next. And Jol-a-bhumir Utsav is one of the events which is being we've been doing this for past 7 years. It's an annual event, and it is to commemorate the World Wetland Day. And it is an opportunity for us to showcase all the activities that happen through the year, or also bring these voices of the children or the stories of the wetlands to the public. Next. And here you see that this is the one of last year we'd done this mela, and all the things that are used here are from the wetlands. They are organic, and the school children, the community, they were all part of it. They were food stalls. There were different kinds of the exhibition of their artworks where they this year we actually addressed the kind of biodiversity degradation that's happening. So this year, the children made masks, costumes, and every one of us came together. It was a time where it's an opportunity for us to bring different stakeholders together also, and to have a dialogue among them, as well as to showcase what we are doing. Next. So this walk for wetlands is something that we've been doing past few years. And this year it was interesting that we could really bring in so many schools together, and the schools all made banners and placards stating that it was important that we conserve these wetlands, stating that what kind of changes that we really require, the urgency of the situation. And this is the idea that in long run, these young ambassadors will be the custodians of these spaces. They will be the leaders to take the conservation practices forward. Next. This is something that we've been doing for past few years, is wetland walks. And one of our ambassadors is, of course, Nayna. So Nayna can talk about that. She's our eco guide also, and what are the experiences that she has when she takes people around.
তো আমরা একটা ট্রেল করাই, যেটা দু রকমের ট্রেল হয়, একটা ওয়েটল্যান্ড ট্রেল এবং একটা এডুকেশনাল ট্রেল। তো আমরা বিভিন্ন ধরনের সিটি স্কুলের বাচ্চাদের এডুকেশনাল ট্রেলে নিয়ে আসি এবং তাদেরকে সেখানে ওয়েটল্যান্ড সম্পর্কে বিভিন্ন রকমের জিনিস জানানোর চেষ্টা করি। তো আহিরি।
Yes. So there are two kinds of trails that Disappearing Dialogues has curated. One is a wetland trail open for public and open for everyone. And the other is an educational trail where we bring in students from the city, and mostly the city, because we see there is a lot of there's a lack of awareness among not only the children but also the adults. And the wetland trail, while it is also a very refreshing experience, because the trails usually start early in the morning, and it's a beautiful experience. I'd ask every one of you who've joined us today to definitely visit the wetlands when you're here in Kolkata. And so the wetland is not the wetland trail is not only a very refreshing experience, but DD members and eco guides, they share on the wetland the biodiversity there, the community practices, and in the educational trail there are different activities. Children come up with different questions, and there's bird watching. We often collaborate with organizations as well for different kinds of trails. Yes, Nayna.
তো সেখানে আমরা বাচ্চাদেরকে জলাভূমি সম্পর্কে বিভিন্ন রকমের জিনিস জানাই, বিভিন্ন রকমের পাখি দেখাই, গাছ দেখাই, গাছকে চেনাই। তো জলাভূমিতে জলাভূমির মানুষেরা কিভাবে জীবনযাপন করে, তাদের দৈনন্দিন জীবনটা কেমন, সেইগুলো সম্পর্কে তাদেরকে একটা ধারণা দিই।
So the details usually shared are about the unique wastewater management system, the variety of birds, various plants, trees, wild plants, edible plants, as Nobina they were saying just a while back, and there's various other species, insects, and aquatic plants. And then obviously about the livelihood of the local community there who the sustains the practices. And also, yeah, I also already spoke about the activities. Yes, Nayna, you can continue.
তো এখানে বাচ্চাদের মানে তারা যে তারা এই ফাঁকা জায়গাটা দেখে মানে জলাভূমিটা দেখে ওরাও খুব আনন্দ করে, আর আমরাও নিজেরা খুব মানে হ্যাপি হই কি তাদেরকেও জানাতে পারলাম যে জলাভূমিটা কি, বা জলাভূমি বলেও একটা কোনো জিনিস আছে যেটা কলকাতার খুব পাশে। এবং এমন অনেক মানুষেরা আছে যারা জলাভূমি সম্পর্কে কিছু জানেনই না, বা মানে জলাভূমিটা যে কলকাতার পাশে আছে বলে বা সেটা অনেকেই জানেন না আর কি। তো আমরাও সেটা জানিয়ে খুব খুশি হই যে আমরাও মানে কিছু লোকদেরকে জানাতে পারলাম যে এই জিনিসটা সম্পর্কে অবগত করলাম আর কি। তো
Yeah, so there is Nayna saying that she feels very happy and delighted that she is being able to share about her own neighborhood and about the wetlands, about its value to not only the children but also adults. And there is a lack of awareness, as I said, among everyone. So the wetland trails really help and act as a thing that spreads the word about the wetlands and how it sustains the city of Kolkata. And usually what happens is during any trail we ask a question that to the children that what is the difference that you see around your house and around where you are standing, and then the first thing they say that there are a lot of trees. So I think and as they start walking and experiencing the trail, there are obviously a lot of bunch of new things that come across. They learn a lot about the wetlands as a whole. And we hope that they only become these wetland ambassadors and spread the message across. Yes.
And the most interesting part is Nayna would also tell you about the small games that they would play. She would break up a seed and she would bring you, we call it Barbie of wetlands, or she would make bubbles out of the sap of leaves. So these are the interesting things. They said that we've been playing with all these, they really don't need any kind of external things to really what to say, entertain themselves or enjoy. So
I'll just interrupt a minute. I think a very interesting feedback came up recently from one of the students who came into our trail, and we asked them, what did you like about the trail? What was interesting? What was new? And one girl said that আমরা 6 ঘন্টা ফোন ছাড়া থেকেছি. So she said that we did not look at our phones, we did not look at any kind of screen for 6 straight hours, and that's something very very interesting for her because she did not spend such a day in a recent past. Yeah.
And I think the other thing that happens is in this trail, both when we have adults coming in, we have people coming from different professions and different kinds of dialogues coming. We have photographers, we have activists, we have environmental, and we have general people who've come on morning to spend in the wetlands. So it's interesting that this whole engagement, exchange that we have in this, both when we have children from the city and when we have this group from the wetlands. So this exchange also helps us. It's a learning platform also to bring a lot more dialogue, which maybe as within our team as disappearing dialogues also we don't think. So a lot of it emerges organically within the space. Next.
Yes.
And with this approach, we've realized that we really need to build up a kind of program. We need to bring all these children from both the wetlands and then the city together, because there's a lot of things that they can learn from each other. They can hold hands and we can have a whole cohort of leaders. And Sustainability Hub was one of these programs. We've been doing this Wipro Sustainability Program last 1 year. And it's been wonderful to see how they have responded to their surroundings, because it's not just the awareness, but also the kind of action that is needed on ground. What kind of changes that you can make in your own surroundings, whether you realize that each and every action you take in life is interrelated. So these are the things that we are trying to state through these programs, and also building a kind of a body of young leaders who would look into all these issues, rather than just going blind to, because at times we are very quite surprised when we ask children from the cities that how many trees do you know. They'll be able to say names of around 5 to 6 trees. How many birds, there's a very limited kind of access that we have to environmental elements. But then they have a lot of exposure to maybe technology and other things. So when we bring them together, it's interesting that somewhere the East Kolkata wetland children pick up the kind of technological skills or new skills from these city children, as well as the city children in exchange learn about the ecological wealth. So we hope that this really builds on longer further from here. Next. Recently, this year, we did an exhibition in January, February. It was part of the Jol-a-bhumir. This was a symbiotic cohabitation, as we've been talking about since last 1 hour nearly, about this symbiotic cohabitation, how the city and the wetlands is important. So we wanted to bring these small elements in the exhibition. It was an installation which one had to experience. So we brought in school children, we wanted guests who would come, and we would take them into these guided tours and talk about the kind of water that wetlands has, what nutritive qualities it had, how regenerative waste can be, how we could actually make changes in our everyday life, the kind of choices we do, the kind of food we eat, the kind of utensils we use, the kind of clothes we wear. Is there any way we could change them and we could bring in impact in a larger scale? So that was the main connection that we tried to make. Next. There were other programs that we worked with, which was also highlighting that why this symbiotic cohabitation is important, what relationships we can build, is moving Kolkata moving, and it was we had a lot of partners in it. Basically, the idea was we made an exhibition where we highlighted the kind of artwork, the kind of stories, even stories from the project were displayed there, and both the community and city people visited. It was stationed in Kotha High School, and it was interesting how this dialogue was built, and people really found it engaging. Even the community, the parents came in. You had children coming in like huge groups visiting the exhibition. So it was interesting to have this kind of conversation and also highlight the works of the children. Next. That brings us to the most important aspect of it, is the current challenges. I think we are all facing the current challenge. One is the heat wave, the rising temperatures in all cities, on places. The other is the water deficit. And I think who best can talk about it than Nayna, who's been in the wetlands, who's been living here and the kind of challenges that is growing day by day. And this is the work which one of the children has done in reflection to the kind of pollution, the kind of waste, the kind of changes that are happening in everyday life. Nayna, please share with us.
তো গত 2 বছর ধরে এই গরমের টাইমটাতে গ্রাউন্ড ওয়াটার লেভেল এতটা নিচে নেমে যাচ্ছে যে জল পাওয়া যাচ্ছে না। মানে এখানকার শুধু আমাদের বাড়িতে বলে নয়, এখানকার বেশিরভাগ বাড়িতে মানে টিউবওয়েলে জল পড়ছে না। মানে এটা বিশাল বড় একটা সমস্যা। এবং
from the past 2 years, the groundwater level has depleted majorly, and this has been a very big crisis in the wetlands. And in the tube wells available around, there is no water supply. There is no water that's coming out from the tube wells. Yes, Nayna.
তো মানে আমরা নিজেরাও জানি না যে কেন গ্রাউন্ড লেভেলটা এত নিচে নেমে যাচ্ছে এবং সেটা কি কারণে। তো আমরা মানে এখন যে পরিস্থিতিতে সবাই আছে এখানকার মানুষেরা, মানে জলাভূমি ইকেডাব্লিউর মানুষের কথা বলছি, তো তারা নিজেদের যে খাবার জলটা সেটা তো কিনে খেতেই হয়, প্লাস তারা নিজেদের যে ব্যবহারের জলটুকু সেটাও তারা কিনে নিচ্ছে বাইরের থেকে, কারণ তারা কোনোভাবেই এখানে জল পাচ্ছে না।
Aahiree, can we go to the next slide and then you can...
Yes, yes, sure. Yeah, so Nayna is saying that she's unaware why the groundwater level has depleted so much, and the community at EKW, they are buying their, not only buying just their drinking water, but for every other use they have to buy water, and that is such a huge problem. Staying amidst the wetlands, they don't have a single drop of water. Yes, Nayna.
তো আমরা মানে ডিসঅ্যাপিয়ারিং ডায়ালগস থেকে এবছরে এই এটা ছাপানো হয়েছিল টেলিগ্রাফে। আমরা একটা সার্ভে করছি এখনো, যে কোথায় কোথায় জল আছে আর কোথায় গ্রাউন্ড লেভেলটা একদম নেমে গেছে। তো সেই সার্ভেটা আমরা টেলিগ্রাফে তুলে ধরেছিলাম, এবং মানে টেলিগ্রাফ থেকে চন্দ্রিমা ম্যাম এসেছিলেন, তো তিনি তুলে ধরেছিলেন এটা।
Yes, so yes, Nobina ma'am, do you want to say?
No. I'm just saying that basically the whole idea is like, we know that the community is, or the children every day, they are telling us these stories. And we really sometimes feel helpless because we know that unless we create the pressure on the policymakers, the government officials, or the people who are in charge of these departments, it will be difficult because there are things which are beyond our reach, but then there are things that we can also do. So, somewhere this was a kind of a sharing of the stories of the wetlands from the idea of the kind of crisis that they are facing at the current times. Next slide. So this is Shujan, who's doing the field studies and recording, taking all the records and putting it together for us. And we hope to take this further because it's important to study the kind of changes that are happening and reason out why they are happening. And if the stories come from the community, as we have learned in this project, the whole dynamics changes. Next slide. And that brings me to the last dialogue, which is that we already see that 50 to 80% of global wetlands have either degraded or disappeared. In this situation, can we think of how do we restore or regenerate these spaces? Do we have ideas? Are we looking forward to it? Are we even thinking about it? So, I am sure we have people who've joined from different cities across India, and all of us know how difficult and how painful it is when there is a crisis. And but the thing is, before the alarm rises or before there's a catastrophe, we need to act for it. And this is the only thing I would say. It's a plea to every one of you to really think that the changes that you can make or you can really create through your work to think for a better future ahead. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you everyone for joining in.
Thank you. Thank you, Nobina, Nayna, and Aahiree. Yeah. So I see there's a lot of appreciation for the work in some of the comments that have been left, and also a lot of curiosity that you have kind of sparked about wetlands and what it means and how one can engage with it. I think, Ritika, if you'd like to take some of the questions, and then I can
Sure.
take some of them as well to Nobina.
So yeah, the first question is from an attendee. Going forward, how does the rising sea levels impact the EKW ecosystem? Also, with the rapidly growing urbanization, how can underground water table be replenished practically?
We know that the sea levels are definitely rising, and it's a global problem. It's not something which is very specific to this. And the brunt, definitely the Sundarban which is closer to the sea, is going to face the brunt of it. East Kolkata wetlands is still a little far from it. It is at the periphery of Kolkata. It's a peri-urban community. It's just around 15-20 minutes from the city, not very far from the city. But if the sea level rises, of course, we're all going to drown. That's the thing that we all know. And what can we do about it? Of course, one is taking care of all these pockets of water bodies or wetlands, because what happens is these are flood resistant. They hold in the water. They are like sponge. They actually can retain a lot of water within them. But if we really fill up these spaces, we concretize all the spaces around, because we see a lot of, in the name of development, a lot of beautification programs coming in, a lot of, in the name of conservation, somehow there's no idea about what conservation should mean, there's a lot of tree plantation being done, thinking that that's the only way you could really conserve a space. But what kind of trees you need to plant, what kind of, how do you really maintain these water bodies? What do you do about the rejuvenation of these water bodies? One is, of course, the management of waste. The other is how do you replenish the water, the quality of water in these water bodies, which I think needs to be urgently addressed.
So Abhijit Dasgupta is asking a related question. How wastewater is treated in EKW? So, so how does it get treated? How does the community engage with it?
As I was saying, it's an organic process. It flows through the canals. The city was engineered by the Britishers. Earlier we had a Vidyadhari river coming to the city, so the water would go through it. But when this started going back, the Britishers engineered this kind of canals, which would lead the wastewater to the wetlands. Now, from the wetlands, what happens when it flows through these canals? What happens is there's an algae bacteria symbiotic relationship, and with the help of sunlight, these canals are very low, they're not very high, so the sunlight can actually reach till its bed, and as it dilutes, as it flows, the sediments, the pollutant sediment at the bottom of these spaces, it gets purified, and in process, when it reaches the community space, the communities use this wastewater. They do not put all the water in the fish berries, but they would actually process this wastewater. They would use organic things as lime, coal, and a lot of ways to treat the wastewater before they put it in the fishing pond, and they would nurture the fish. So in a way, the water would get purified, because it'll be, it's quite magical if you visit the wetlands and you see this dark black water of the canals, and just beside it you see crystal clear blue fish ponds. So, it seems quite magical that how does this happen? But it happens to the community practices who use their senses. And that's what we want to enhance. We want people to enhance their senses, to be able to realize that, you could actually, they're more scientists, they can smell, they can taste, they can see the color of the water and decide how much wastewater is required in these ponds. And also there's agriculture. There's lots of fresh vegetables that are grown. And these fresh vegetables are grown without fertilizers, because the soil is itself so fertile here.
And there are a lot of questions about the role of the government and the corporation, and how involved are they? So I'll just summarize them if I have your permission. Abhijit is asking about the government of West Bengal's draft for 120 crore plan to save the East Kolkata Westland, and if it has been implemented. Also, there's a question about how is the corporation doing anything to block solid waste coming into the EKW, and as well as do you engage, or does the government engage with groups like Disappearing Dialogues? Are they involved in supporting or helping in any way with the work that you do?
There are a lot of issues around this. Of course, we have also heard about it, all these grants which had come to from the center. You had a lot of funds being given for the wetlands, but then in the long run, we work in the with the community, we know what's happening on the ground. So we haven't seen much of it being implemented, to be very truthful, because we've heard there are so many plans. There are plans to actually rejuvenate these water bodies. There are plans to manage waste. Even recently, there was a small waste management, a kind of building that has been built. There are small carts being taken to these villages to collect their waste, solid waste. But then they're so small, they can only collect 2 household waste in it. Nayna can talk about the kind of things that come there. But that's the most pathetic thing, that, though you have a system which is like, that's what we think, we have a free of cost system, and that is why Kolkata has always been called as an ecologically subsidized cities. And, people of different social structures can exist here because you get food at a very cheaper rate. You have systems which are easily available. But what are we doing to this heritage? We are not really, and the government who actually has to be very, very active at this moment, because we do hear there's a development plan of making a convention center. We also hear there are other development plans, but how are the communities involved in these plans? Are they ever questioned? What plan would really work, will not really work? So somehow we feel that it's very important that these plans, or whatever the government is thinking, has to be much grounded, and the community should be a very important part of this planning system. And for us, being supported by the government, yes, they do come for our walk for the wetlands, or they come for our Jol-a-bhumir show, but that's all. It comes in the papers, it comes in the news next day. But then we have given proposals for doing a lot of activities. Also, we've done community capacity building. We wanted to incorporate it. We wanted to reuse the organic waste and make some products. So these are plans which we have in mind, and we really wish that people come in forward, because these are the sustainable solutions. Because it's no point arguing that what's happening, or looking into it as, oh my God, this is a crisis and what am I going to do? The most important part is to find the solution. So I think if the government doesn't come up with solutions, we as active citizens of the cities, I think it's important that we come together and look for these solutions, whether, and I'm just not talking about Calcutta or the wetland in here. Yeah.
Okay, there's two more questions, and also words of appreciation. Like Aditi has written, presentation is amazing and it's invaluable. Such an enriching experience for those who are seeing it. Thank you, Aditi. And another question, which is, of course, someone is like commended on the approach, fascinated by the approach. But the question is, through the years of work, what have been the most critical challenges and problems you have witnessed? Ecological and behavioral problem you'd like the folks in the cities to take note of?
One definitely is, somehow we do not, the lack of awareness is one very important thing. We do realize that, because somehow we have not been, our education system does not allow us to look beyond the books. It does not incorporate the kind of surroundings that we live in. And because of this gap of not being able to connect with the environment, we have somehow become very, a kind of blindness has grown around about our own surroundings, and we are very self-centric, and we are very happy with our everyday life. And I think the most important ecological challenge that is there is, one is the waste, which is we are generating so much waste on a daily basis, both whether household domestic waste or whether it's the wastewater, and the quality of wastewater that we are generating. Because earlier, the wastewater that would go into the Kolkata wetlands and the fishing ponds would be very much organic. And now the kind of synthetic products that we use, and there's also a lot of solid waste being dumped in these canals. So that is also changing the character of the water. And automatically, this whole system with time, if it is not taken care of, if the waste management is not properly done, and if citizens don't realize their responsibility, that these these water canals are their lifelines. The whole city will die if these lifelines die. So these have to be looked into in a different perception. And also about the biodiversity, we somehow do not realize what biodiversity really means. Like that's what I was saying, that we hardly know about the trees, the local trees that need to be. And maybe we fancy seeing a bird in our windowsill and say, oh wow, this is such a beautiful bird who's come from here. But then why it has come, there is a reason for each and every element that is happening in our environment, and they are interconnected. So we still have a living heritage and a living archive existing, and it's so important that people look into it and understand it and also value it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Robina. That was going to be my next question, a quick question that I wanted to ask about the idea of the living archive, right? Because you're drawing on the narratives of the community and sharing them. I was just curious. I know the project is larger than the IFA's journey with you, and it continues. So if you could speak a bit about how this information is still living, other than the eco guides, because the kids or the youth who engage with you, they have graduated, so to speak. Then there are younger children in the community who can be engaged. And is that process happening, one? And two, because you've spoken about such rich amount of material you've collected, where does this archive sit? There are two stories, there are these books, but are there ways in which you have thought about sharing all these narratives that you gathered from the children beyond the eco guides alone? Just curious about how you're taking it all forward.
I think somehow this whole process of gathering was something that we really didn't want to do in a way. What we thought is what we gather is basically the experience that these children are sharing, or the community people are sharing with us. And we would like them to speak about it, them to express it. So art, innovation, and culture is one thing which we definitely bank for this. So we have a storytelling session. We have a young creators lab, which we have every year. Maybe Aahiree, can you speak a line on the young creators lab? Maybe it'd be nice to have your engagement too.
Yeah, Young Creators Lab is a concept where we bring in children from different schools, from the EKW as well as the city schools and even community schools in the city like Iktara. And we've been glad that every time, last time we had about 25 children together, and we collaborated with an expert, Odissi dancer, Shashwati Ghorai Ghosh, who created a beautiful, co-created a beautiful production based on the EKW and the daily life and the mundane life of the community. And it was a dance production which we have presented in different platforms around the city. And that also, Jol-a-bhumir Utsav is one huge platform where the city, people from the city and the community comes together, and the production was presented there as well. And this year, we collaborated with Kelaza, a storytelling platform, and experts from there came in and built stories with students around ecological themes from based on folk tales around the world. So Young Creators Lab is really a space where we push students to innovate, brainstorm, and create something of their own, with obviously mentors from in and around, and the DD team is always there to support them. And we always try to present the initial presentation in the wetlands. Yeah.
So this is one of the ways. The other way is we also like to, as you were saying, every year, of course, a new batch comes in, and slowly the cohort of these Jol-a-bhumir Bondhus is growing in a way. And we are happy to see when these children pass out from schools, many of them are being able to connect their lives or their dreams and aspirations with the knowledge systems, because they have to compete with the general children or the general system where we live in. And what do they hold on, where do they excel, is this kind of knowledge, and where they are confident to iterate it, they are confident to express it in different forms. So that is, and one of our ex-students has at the moment is also a Green Hub fellow. He's learning environmental filmmaking. Nayna, of course, is the eco-guide. We have Shujan as the field assistant who's working. So we would like them to be trained in different ways, and first of all, find their own calling, then being trained in process, and see how they could think of a future beyond the whole standard future that usually we paint of, and give back to the community, build something more beyond that, and come up with alternative solutions also. So I think it's nice to see how the people who've come out from the project and how they're leading their own ways through it. And I'm sure they are the role models who will inspire many more children to take this dialogue forward. And that's the living archive in a way.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I mean, I think that's what's exciting about it, that they engage with different processes that you said. There were journalistic, there was storytelling, there was illustration, And like you said, they find their calling and they take these with them in whatever way they want. And it's lovely to see Nayna and Sujan and Aahiree and everyone involved as well. Ritvika, to you.
Yeah, there are two more questions. I'll quickly kind of read them out. One is by Abhijit. He has a question specific to EKW, which is what are the possible causes of water depletion in EKW? And another request is where can we access reports and literature published by Disappearing Dialects?
Okay. So depletion, the reports, the field, what to say, research that we've done till now, we have come to know that a lot of drinking water, which the community is being supplied, is actually extracted from the deep boring being done in the wetlands. So they are, interestingly, last year we realized that the Panchayat head himself had a deep boring plant in his own home, and he was supplying the water to the village around. And and that's growing because automatically we know that even cities have this problem at the moment where water supply and water is another important aspect which will be related to economy, which will be related to our people have anticipated that we might have water wars in future. But the idea is, water is one of the very important resources, which is going to be even more difficult to get in future. So Nayna, who's been in the wetlands, there has been a lot of stories that we hear. We've been asking the community that what might be the reasons. Some of them say we don't know. Some of them do have highlighted that there are a few families who are actually extracting a lot more water than requirement, and they're selling it across. So I think there has to be more strict rules and regulation within these spaces, and the policymakers have to be firm about what is going to be the long-term plan. The policies that are being made, are they really going to sustain? Are they really looking for a sustainable future, or are they just one-time plans and projects which come each year, and then even the officers get transferred here and there, and the plans are left just on the middle stage? So that's one thing. I forgot the second question. That the second part.
Second part is, it was a separate question to where to access the reports and publications that Disappearing Dialogues come up with.
Some of it is basically, you could definitely write to us. We can, if you're interested, we can send them to you. Some of it is on our Instagram page. We completely update what we are doing. And though we have been thinking of updating our web page where we would put all these articles published there. One, I think IFA's archive is one place where they can look into the work we've done. Pari has a few of them. There are also some papers we've written with, there's a paper that's been published in UCL, and that is something where we've written about the kind of education that's required in these rural spaces among the first generation learners. So there are resources, but then of course, I think we really need to work a little bit more on getting these on the public forum and at one place. Yes, of course.
Thank you so much, Nobina, and thank you, Nayna, Aahiree, all of you, and thanks to the audience for being so patient, being with us throughout the evening. I have one quick question, because the books that we saw online were wonderfully produced. So is there a way to, purchase them from the website, or if you can share more details? Because I will be very interested to have a closer look at this. And thanks to the audience, we will be announcing our next project showcase soon for the month of May. So please stay tuned. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn to know more updates. There are a few calls right now which are open at IFA, and we are across different programs. So kindly follow the link in the chat box to know how to apply and to read more in details about these. Lastly, I would again thank the audience, and thanks to Goethe Institute Maximilian Urban Delhi for supporting this project and for part supporting this project, and also to People's Archive of Rural India for being an excellent collaborator on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to answer the question about getting these books, I think you can always write to us or DM us. We also have an Instagram page for DD Dokan where these books are available. So we definitely look forward. Thank you so much for the session. And I hope everyone really enjoyed.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.